guys? Welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 110, AFC North Preview. We got a champ in the house with us tonight. We'll get to that in a minute.
Let's go.
We now have our own free Discord, a Patreon. If you guys are interested in those, please DM us on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram. However you can locate us, feel free. Sneak into my DMs. I'll send you the links. Anyway, like,
Hopefully-
comment, and subscribe.
Oh, baby.
Hopefully he sends you the right one.
The videos, yeah. You guys don't want to get the extra links. You do.
So
Holler's here with me tonight. Holler's the champ of something.
I shared this in our Discord, right? And I got 2 laughing emojis. That's all I got. Like, what is
Holler,
going
I was
on?
probably busy. I was installing on
I was just surprised I got laughing
I was outside
emojis.
all day.
But anyway, this is
I know
actually
the
pretty
one.
cool.
It is pretty cool. Did you wear the grocery store?
I did, the 99 cent
Roll
store.
to the
actually.
Albertsons and a
No,
championship belt?
It's
Nice.
from Trophy.
What's
it's from Trophy-
Albertsons?
Oh, it's a West Coast grocery store.
It's from
Ooh,
Trophy
so
Smack.
fancy.
It's from I won a best ball charity tournament. It was the first year last year, so it was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's all I got on it. If I'll drop the link in the Discord if anybody wants to join a charity best ball tournament. Doesn't have any crazy scoring. It's pretty general, and it's for a good cause.
Love that. And plus you get a cool little belt.
Yeah, and I won and got a belt, so
Yeah,
try to-
congrats on the belt. Congrats on
Was
the
your,
win.
was
How
your
many-
wife impressed with it, with the belt?
so
Yeah,
impressed.
what do you
Yeah,
think?
I
What's your
bet.
thing?
yeah.
I bet.
She yep.
You take her out for a night in the town wearing that? I would
Exactly.
assume
Yeah,
you
she
would.
asked me
You have to.
to wear it on the next.
Put it
on
over top
date
of the
night.
mantle, or over top of the.
Yeah,
the
no,
bed?
Nail
I'm
it.
actually-
at it.
I'm actually gonna put it right outside my front door and put it above, so whenever
I think
anybody
so.
comes over,
Champ lives
Smart.
here. Champ lives
Yeah.
here.
exactly,
That's smart.
exactly,
It's a conversation piece. And be like, yeah, I won that.
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
exactly.
Hey, how many contestants were in this?
Well, I
At
think
least
it
4.
was. Yeah, it was the.
If it's under 10, don't tell us.
Yeah, no, I think it was on like 80. It was the first year, so
Okay.
I think.
That's still pretty good.
But it
Yeah,
was,
that's a
pretty
fair
good.
amount of people. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
geez, I can't.
I'll have to go back and
11 people.
look at my my team, but it was fun.
Yeah,
A lot more fun when you win.
Nice.
it is. It is
Yeah.
always more fun when you win. I got a gnat like flying around my screen right now.
That's the
Anyway,
worst. It is
Yeah,
nat
so-
season.
yeah, gnat season, mosquito season. I saw a frog today. I tried to catch it, almost smoked it with the lawnmower. Didn't smoke it with the lawnmower. Tried to grab
Jeez.
him with the hand. He jumped out of the way under the deck. Couldn't catch him and throw him at the kids. Anyway, George Pickens is traded to the Cowboys. I saw the tweet that came through from Schefter that was from like 3 a.m. or something. Some ridiculous hour. Like I woke up to it and like he was already there, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure. George Pickens is getting traded, today." And then like 2 hours later, George Pickens was in fact traded to the Cowboys. I think we all kind of thought that George Pickens was on the block with DK coming to town. I think we all thought it might happen during the draft. And I'm sure he was floated, throughout the entirety of the draft. I would guess that, whatever just didn't line up, maybe player-wise, pick-wise, whatever. But now Pickens is in Dallas. How do you guys feel about this? Because this is like a powder keg waiting to happen, I think. Like I'm all in for the chaos and shit show that's going to happen with George Pickens, because George Pickens is super talented. He really is. But like, his talent does not outweigh the circus that follows him everywhere, and the player you don't know that you're going to get on a day in, day out kind of basis in a place like Dallas that's already pretty much a circus on a daily basis anyway. Like, that dude was like unhinged in Pittsburgh, and Mike Tomlin had Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and Le'Veon Bell all under wraps for years, and we had no clue.
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts on this. One, the track record of Steelers wide receivers that have left, have been traded away is like Chase Claypool, It's Antonio Brown,
Johnson.
Juju Smith-Schuster, and Deontay Johnson. Not exactly a long list of like success stories there. I know Antonio Brown had a nice year or two in Tampa Bay before he ran off.
He has Hall of Fame numbers, but he went crazy. Like that's the only thing with him, you know.
And Juju was fine in Kansas City for a little bit,
Yeah.
but the other ones are kind of dead. Pickens, I think he said it well. I think when he's like focused and like in the game, I think he's a talented wide receiver. He's just is Dallas isn't the place where he can be corralled. I don't really feel like Dallas has like this incredible like team culture to like have everyone kind of lock him in. It seems like it's kind of a circus that's over there. And so I don't know if this is necessarily the right place for him to go and succeed. But just like the offense in general, this is like by far the best quarterback he's played with. I think I like this a lot for Dak. It gives him a better, wide receiver 2 other than Jalen Tolbert. So that's exciting. Man, I don't know. What do you think about Pickens in Dallas?
So, I think he's going to be the same guy. You never know what's going to happen. Boom or bust.
Sure.
Wide receiver 2, right? There was times last year I was like all in on Pickens and like trying to, once Rashee Rice was injured, I was like, I'm moving a ton of my Rashee Rice for George Pickens.
Yep.
Thankfully, only a few got done. So I think it's a good spot for Pickens, but I don't think it's the best spot to corral his attitude and things like that, right?
That's the thing. Yeah.
So for me, I think he's about the same value-wise. I think he's going to be the same, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, boomer bust guy. But I really think this is really good for Dak. He was already cheap. I think his price is going to probably climb a little bit, but they're going to pass the ball a ton. Like they don't have any running backs unless they, trade for ETN or whatever.
Miles Sanders.
So, I just think the biggest winner out of this is Dak Prescott. And I also think it is good for CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, because I think now they have a third body that is a good receiver, right? So that defense is going to have to spread out. Like if you have your second wide receiver as Tolbert, I mean, just put the clamps down on CD and Ferguson, and I think Tolbert will drop the ball on his own. So I think overall it's good for the offense, and but for me, I'm not really going to be like, oh yes, this is so good for George Pickens, because I think the biggest person that hurts George Pickens is himself.
Mm-hmm.
So George Pickens has never been a wide receiver 2. I wanted to point that out. Like, I know that seems to be like the popular thing that people say. The best he's ever done is like wide receiver 36 on a points per game basis. He's wide receiver 29 in total fantasy points that year. It was 2023. And I know some of that is probably the offense, but I think some of it too is just like how he plays. They throw a lot of like 50-50 balls up to him. He's not like a huge like volume type receiver. He's kind of like, he makes some ridiculous catch or he doesn't do anything. I kind of tentatively went through and I started like statting out players, and I had him in Dallas. I had him down for 127 targets, which is like a 22% target share, 80 receptions, 1,240 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That would be his best season by far. 14.5 points per game, which would have been good for wide receiver 24 last year. And I feel like that was a pretty nice stat production that I gave him. I think it could be a lot worse than that. The history of wide receiver changing teams isn't always super friendly to people. I think this happened far enough along that it's like far enough in the offseason that he should be okay. But and like you said, they don't have a run game, so like it's not like there should be plenty of volume to go around as long as he can keep his head on straight. I think he should kind of fall backwards into a wide receiver 2 season. But we'll see.
I think he, like you said already, this is the best quarterback he's played with by far. And I just think I probably should have said he's more of a wide receiver 3. Like if I think about it, if I have him on my team and he's like the third wide receiver, I'm feeling pretty good. And then if he ends up being like, what you have projected here, like wide receiver 24, like that's awesome. Right. So for me, I think he's,
best case, right? Yeah,
pretty much a wide receiver 3. And there's some rookies I probably would take over him. But I would send a 202 to 206 for him. Just because I think at this rate, he's with the better quarterback. Right now, they don't have a good, running back. So I just think they're going to throw the ball a ton.
So I moved him today, actually. I had him originally in the 203 to 208 tier. I bumped him up one. He's right below the 111 to 202 tier, in between those two. So like the way I kind of view it, if I'm on the clock right now, if I'm on the clock at 203 and you offer me Pickens, I'm probably taking the Pickens deal. If I'm 202, I'm probably going to take one of the rookies. And then for 2026, I probably want to wait first. I don't think an early 2 is going to cut it for me there. Man, and it's just like, it's risky. Like he's just risky, right? Like I don't think you have him as like a wide receiver 3 and feel like warm and fuzzy about like this is a sure like locked and loaded fantasy producer on your team, right? Like I think that's the biggest thing for me is that like I know the talent's there, but like he's had just weird stuff following him ever since he was at Georgia. So
man,
I think he's like the definition of boomer bust, right? And a lot of times though our wide receiver 3s are pretty boomer bust, right? So there's some that are wide receiver 2/3 like fringe, right? But he for me is like the definition of boomer bust. And like thinking about it now, it's just like I think we were moving him last year for Rashee Rice, or removing Rashee Rice for him last year after like a really good game, and thinking like, okay, wow, I think he's going to have the majority of the targets and things like that. But on any day, he can just wake up and have a bad day, and then he's going to play like crap on a Sunday. So I think it's all in his head, and I think that's why it's the definition of boomer bust.
I think he hears the demons. And he just takes it out of the neck of the nearest DB.
Dude, oh my Lord, that man needs something. He won't find it in Dallas. I'm pretty much guarantee of that. This is going to go poorly. I talked about it last year when Deontay Johnson got moved from the Steelers and kind of asked the question, should we really look at this when the Steelers move on from a wide receiver and kind of maybe also try to wash our hands at that current value, if you're heavily invested in that wide receiver, just to kind of minimize your risk, because obviously they have that person in the building. They kind of see what he's like, and they've looked at him and they've said, no, we're going to take, this, that, the other, get out while we can. I kind of think that maybe next time the Steelers do this and you have a player, I mean, you could be doing this with Pickens right now, possibly. The Pickens one is a little bit tougher because he's kind of always had this looming over top of his head.
Yeah. I think in a lot of our leagues, though, I think it will just depend. But I think there's some people that are going to be like, "Oh, sweet, he's on Dallas. That's awesome. Let's go out and buy."
Yeah,
I'm with you, Ron. It's like I'm gonna think about it a little bit more, and like maybe I'll move off of him. But for what I think it just depends, because a lot of my rookie drafts are done. So I'll have to go look and see how many shares I have and see what I can get for him.
It still has to be the right trade, and it has to be somebody to, that wants to buy into him and then wants to pay for George Pickens. I'm not saying move off of him because the Steelers moved him, but if somebody's willing to pay for, someone that's never lived up to the hype that I believe George Pickens has always had follow him around, along with all the drama that's followed him around, when does it actually happen for this guy?
Well, the other thing too is that like the trade deal that went down, like the compensation was like a 3rd and a 5th round pick for a wide receiver on a rookie deal. That's not a lot. So like,
right.
It's not like when Tyreek Hill or like DJ Moore or like AJ Brown got traded out for like, 1st round pick returns kind of deal, right? And because those make sense, and those are kind of the 3 probably best examples of wide receivers who were traded and did really well for a new team. I know there was like the Amari Cooper year in Cleveland, he did well, but that's kind of like the outlier. Like
Amari Cooper in Dallas here too.
Yeah, and like getting traded for a 3rd and a 5th, like that doesn't scream like, oh, this guy is like we paid up to get our guy, right? It's kind of another red flag a little bit that it's not like they sent a ton of compensation for him. And generally when teams ship off a wide receiver, it's not like like they know what they're sending off, right? And there was like, and they don't exactly have the strongest wide
Exactly.
receiver room, and they thought they were better off without him. So,
Right. Right.
oh man, I have a hard time. I don't want to go out and acquire any George Pickens. I'll just put it that way.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. I only have one, and I'll hope that somebody really buys into the whole Cowboys thing. Unfortunately, Dan is not in the league. Dude, Dan has got to be going bananas right now.
Yeah, he's probably so stoked.
This is like one of Dan's favorite players, and like now he's
a
on
Georgia
Dan's
Bulldog,
favorite
and now
team.
he's a Dallas
Dude,
Cowboy. That's exciting.
My God, dude.
I'm excited for him.
Dan probably can't be contained. Anyway, I don't know why I went on this Dan rant, but I've been thinking about it.
I will say I had a team that had both George Pickens and DK Metcalf that I was really sweating not that long ago, and so now I'm like, well, at least they're on different teams now. So,
right. It feels a lot better.
There's that.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about with George Pickens going to Dallas?
Pour one out for Jalen Tolbert, I guess. Real quick though, too. Do you think let me phrase it this way. I think that Jake Ferguson still has a role and can still be successful in that offense. I think they're going to throw probably top 5 in the NFL in terms of pass attempts. So I don't have like a huge concern, but I've seen some people being like, "Oh, Jake Ferguson's dead." I don't think that's the case. I think he's
totally
still going to have a big role in
what they do.
I think and I think he's going to have probably like third on the team in targets, right? And serve as like a safety valve for that offense. So I still like Ferguson, and if it means I can get him even cheaper, I'm for him. Yeah.
And so even if he's third to Pickens in targets, like I think it's going to be like third in a way that's so close that like it doesn't even matter that he was actually third. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I also
10,
think
15 targets.
I also think I could see. I know people probably think Pickens is the better talent, but Ferguson's already been there. He doesn't have the
and Dak likes Ferguson. He likes the tight end.
Exactly. So like he's not the head case that Pickens is. So I think you could flip a coin who's going to have more of the target share between Ferguson and Pickens. So for me, I don't think it really changes anything for Ferguson.
Yeah. I'll bet on Ferguson until proven otherwise at this
17
point.
Right now on KTC. I agree. I think that's too low. I think he's probably a top.
Oh yeah, he's being disrespected severely.
Yeah, agreed.
What would you go out and pay for him right now?
I mean, what do I even have to pay? I mean, like, okay, so here's the problem with asking me what I would pay for Jake Ferguson. I have Jake Ferguson everywhere because I scooped Jake Ferguson up off of waivers and got him super cheap before he was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you didn't. Let's say there's a new league where that didn't happen.
Okay.
And you need a tight end.
I hate this hypothetical world. I already have him. No, go ahead.
Would you send a 26 early 2? And we're going to assume tight end premium, right? So 2 points for the tight end. Would you send an early 2?
Is it?
Well, let me give you a player.
I...
Would you send? I'm going to give you a player instead. I don't like that. Khalil Shakir. Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. I know you like Ricky.
Yeah, I'll send Ricky. I know what Jake Ferguson
Mashing Ferguson there. Give me Ferguson all day and twice on Sunday.
I'll probably go. It's going to be more roster dependent with Godwin because I still believe in Godwin. But I will probably lead toward. I need a tight end and take Ferguson. You need them both. You need them both. I'm probably taking tight end because wide receiver is harder to fill. Or I'm sorry, tight end's harder to fill. I can fill wide receiver other ways than Chris Godwin. Like with Khalil Shakir, who's going to cost me less than Jake Ferguson.
DeAndre Swift.
Or
Fergie.
You know how I feel about DeAndre Swift.
I'm going to go Fergie as well. I think it's a little closer. So it will depend on, my running back room, but Ferguson for me.
Sam Darnold.
Ferguson.
I'll take Darnold. I personally don't believe in him.
Darnold won't be starting midway through the season.
Yeah, but I'll just take the upside with Darnold. Like
Josh Allen. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, cool. I think
I
beat that to death. Yeah, I think I beat that to death. We can move on. We're all taking Ferguson over Allen. Okay.
Yeah, and these are all assuming 2-point tight end premium. So
yeah,
for what it's worth,
super flex 2-point tight end premium.
Yeah.
It's usually the standard kind of leagues that we play in, but it's worth repeating for sure.
Yeah. So should we get in? We kind of got an AFC North. No, don't kind of have one. This is what we have for you today.
We do have one.
AFC. We have an AFC North. I hate when people say, "I kind of need you." No, you actually need me to do that. You're just putting that kind of in there because you want it to sound nice. AFC North preview for you guys tonight. And first up, we do have the Baltimore Ravens. Spanky, I'm sorry. I see that there are other numbers here. And I don't know what those pertain to, so I just skipped past them.
That's fine. Those are, well, since we're talking about it, that was for our own reference for when we talk about some other players' projected stats. You can get a reference of where that would typically lie.
Wonderful.
So not really relevant to the listener. But the Baltimore Ravens, so last year they went 12-5. They lost to the Bills in the divisional round, so they had a very successful season. Lamar won MVP. Did I misremember that? He did, right? No, Josh Allen.
He did.
He should have.
No,
I
remember
that was the whole thing.
Lamar should have won, and
he should have, but he didn't. It is what it is.
Any given year, either one of those guys.
Projected win totals at 11.5. If you had to take a bet on that, would you do the over or the under 11.5 wins? I think I'm gonna go under, personally.
Oh, I'll take over for the Ravens.
I'll take over, just because if we'll talk about it, but the Browns, who knows what they're going to be? The Steelers, who knows what they're going to be? I know their defense is good and their team is good, but for me, it's just within their division. I know Cincinnati, but is their defense any better? So I'm going over.
They always play Cincinnati, Cincinnati usually plays Baltimore tough.
I can also argue that the whole
NFC crossover this year.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, so they're playing the AFC East, it looks like, and they play
the NFC East.
No, they play the AFC East, and then they play the NFC North. So they have to play the Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears, which I think might be a little trickier than. So that's why I kind of leaned under.
It's tough, but I'll still take the over.
I'm gonna take the over as well.
They've been.
All right. Sounds like we got a side bet.
Mine's a whole beard, Kevin. Come on.
Mustache. Decided why not? I was surprised both Ron and Spanky didn't say anything about
it. Looks
I
good,
didn't
man.
really
You look like a
notice
cop.
until we started.
Awesome.
Do I look like Farva?
You do.
A little bit, yeah.
Awesome.
Aiden O'Connell.
Let's go
over there.
Yeah, that's
Aiden O'Connell over there. Is that the compliment you've been getting all day while wearing your belt?
All day.
Man,
you look just like
Farva.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean Aiden O'Connell?
Yeah. So no, I'm taking the over. I know that the crossover. I know that's probably going to be tough.
That's for the Rams.
They're I bet you the Rams lose.
They also have Lamar Jackson, who can literally on any given week decide, you know what, screw this. I'm playing the game and it's over for the other team. And it doesn't matter what team you are. That's just what Lamar can do. I'm serious. I mean,
they
he's
also
one of those
lost
players.
to the Raiders last year. So
hey, look,
at home,
I know.
They had no business losing that game.
Early season stuff, it happens. But I always expect the Raiders. Not the Raiders, the Ravens, always to be a good pushing for the playoff team. I'll take the over. Yeah. They have Lamar Jackson. The NFC North is a scary thing, but it was scary last year, and going into this year, that could change. NFL year by year league. So
Ravens are a team I don't want to bet against. You know what I mean?
And that's it right there. Yeah, that's why I'll take the over. It's they've been good for how many years?
The margin of error of between winning and losing is pretty small. They barely hit the over last year when Lamar put up one of the best seasons. It really just I don't know. I think there's a more plausible pathway to them losing even just one more game and going 11-6 than it is to hit 12 wins again. It's
sure. No, that's definitely fair. It's definitely fair.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so key players here for the Baltimore Ravens. We got Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, and Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Derrick Henry. They basically stayed the same generally
Yeah.
throughout the draft.
They did a lot of
I don't
defense.
think, they don't
Mhm.
think they added anybody of any real significance offensively. So you can still get those. I guess the D Hop ad is new, but we kind of saw D Hop. We've seen D Hop, now in Tennessee flounder away, and that could have been Will Levis. We kind of thought he got with Patrick Mahomes, and we kind of saw a little bit of D Hop, and it was like kind of exciting for like a game, and then he was pretty much non-factor, and now he's with the Ravens, and I kind of feel the same, like non-factor until proven otherwise. I mean, I'm not going to add any D Hop, that's for sure. Hope he scores some points if I have him.
So for me, the only pass catcher, our joke here is that Zay Flowers is a gadget player, but I saw on X
that's your joke. Don't let me into our.
Zay Flowers had 7 games over 70 receiving yards last year, and he had 8 games with less than 40 yards receiving last season. So he's like, boom or bust for sure, right? And so I think he is, firmly like a wide receiver 3. Right. So I just don't feel, and he's not someone I feel super comfortable with. Like, ooh, yes, I have Zay Flowers, and so the main person I want, there's 2 on the Ravens for fantasy, is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, right? Those are like the main people I want. I mean, Bateman had a little bit of resurgence last year, but I think a lot of that came from touchdowns,
which is not touchdowns.
Yeah, which is you cannot sustain, right? And then also, I never know what's going to happen with Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely. So, I know Andrews gets a lot of touchdowns, and he does that almost every year. So, but I still think that is a possibility for it to not continue. So, for me, I don't feel comfortable with anybody outside of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I like Zay Flowers. He's a weird one though, in that like in dynasty circles, he gets valued as a wide receiver 2, even though he's pretty much always a wide receiver 3. I don't know if it's just because you feel like safe, like he's gonna pretty consistently get you like a wide receiver 3, and he's young, so that kind of boosts his value, but he's not like winning you weeks generally. I'm with you. I think Lamar's the one I really want. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the quarterback, a top 3 fantasy player again this year.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry wouldn't be surprising me. I think he's pretty close to probably going to be like a running back, top 12 running back again this year. In terms of like redraft, how high would you take Derrick Henry? And I know it's probably a while before we have to worry about that, but like
probably second round.
Yeah, probably that
end of the second,
I would say.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. Just I don't know. I struggle with redraft these days. Just because my brain is so dynasty that when I go to a redraft,
so terrible.
And yeah, exactly. I used to be solid there, and it's just the last couple of years I've just been but I feel comfortable taking him second problem. Derrick Henry, that is
fair.
And then I know it's like the joke is Zay Flowers is a gadget guy. That's how they use him, and he does really well. But you never know if he's going to get you never know if he's going to have the 70 yard or under 40 yards, right? So that's why I think he's really RB3, and then if
Holler, I think your connection's pulling a wonky thing right now, because you just froze and you started getting less and less coherent. But yes, I do think Zay Flowers is very boom or bust. It takes all I have in me not to say boom or busty. Going back to Derrick Henry, his ADP on, so they just launched, Underdog just launched Best Ball Mania 5 or 6, wherever the hell they're on. His ADP is 13.5, so he's right at the tail end of the first round. Which feels a little rich. One running back 6, but I get it. Right? Until he slows down, can you really bet against that?
So when you guys were talking about it, that's where I thought to take him redraft wise was back end of the first.
Okay.
You guys said 2 or 3, and I just assumed you guys were probably better knowledge ADP wise, but just because of what he is, like workhorse, your gut, yeah, like that's just what it's going to be with because there's so many casuals in redraft, and they're going to see what Derrick Henry. Yeah, they're going to see what Derrick Henry did last year. They've known Derrick Henry's name for 10 plus years now. At this point, as just fantasy dominance, pretty much. So yeah.
And it's, dude, one of these years, Henry is going to slow down. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's going to happen, but how can you keep, if you kept betting against that, it's like 4 years now where he screwed you because he's been a running back 1 because you kept fading him.
Yep.
And I know as soon as you cave in and you take him as your running back 1, it's going to be the year when he just poops his pants. But Mark Andrews, I don't have him set very highly. I have him basically at 11.1 points per game. That's tied in premium, so that would have been tied in 18 last year. Is kind of the pace I have for him. I have him kind of in a decrease in touchdowns from last year, around the same yardage total. I don't know, man. He scares me too. I think realistically, I think we hit it a lot, but basically Lamar and Derrick Henry are the 2 you want. Zay Flowers is fine if he's probably your wide receiver 4 is where I feel really good having Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't care if he kind of booms or busts, right? It's just when he booms, it just helps your team. I don't think it's realistic.
I think I'm all right now with my internet. I don't have any alerts anymore.
It can't. You look a lot clearer.
Yeah. Perfect. Good. That's what I was saying. And with Zay Flowers, is you feel more comfortable if he's in your flex than he is in one of your wide receiver.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Definitely boomer bust guy. But I think they know how to use him well. So for the most part, he'll get you that wide receiver, back end wide receiver 3 points. But yeah, I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
I want to be ahead of the Derrick Henry, right? I think he's probably going to have one more really good year. And I'll have to know, I'll have to assess it year to year, at the end of last year, he looked great. So I feel comfortable going into this season, but in a startup,
he's 31 and a half right now. Old.
So
he's
in a startup, I don't want to touch him in the first 8 rounds. Right. So yeah, he's he's almost as old as us. Right. So that's not good.
He might be younger than some of us.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm actually fine with Mark Andrews, but that is more given the state of the tight end position and given where he's going and the players he's going around. I'm okay swinging at Mark Andrews if he's going to be going in the tight end 18 range because I know what could happen, and you kind of know there's at least probably a safe floor. With Andrews, you're at least going to have some production. He's not going to kill you on a week, but he also, may not be a week winner for you as well either. I think he just came off the tightrope surgery though last year, did he not?
Yeah, I think last year he was,
and I think he came on more at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did 100%.
So do you remember?
I always hate that narrative, but people actual NFL people point to it a lot of you can see on the field they don't exactly look right, for a certain point of time,
and he did
rehabbing from injuries. Right.
Yeah.
And then, getting that confidence back, everything and using, his body the way that he's used to as well. It could have taken him some time, and that's probably how you wind up with a tight end 18 season.
This is crazy to me. So I was thinking back to last year. I think it was maybe after week 1 where Isaiah Likely propped all the way up to tight end 4 or something on Kate.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh my.
So then I went to I don't go to keep trade cut often, but then I was just looking at it again. Right, he's still ahead of Andrews in keep trade cut by I think he's at 11. Andrews is at 13. Right, that's insane.
Tight end 11.
September 7th in 2024, he was tight end 7. Oh, tight end 6 is the highest he was on September 15th. So that must have been after week 1 or week 2, maybe. But it's just insane to me, right? And
he's my tight end 26. Isaiah Likely. So
that
it's
sounds
a little bit of a
where he
discrepancy.
should be.
I want nothing to do with Isaiah Likely. Like, I think he's a athletic guy, but again, I don't think he can tackle block enough to stay on the field. So I feel more comfortable with Andrews as being their tight end one.
Yeah, unless Andrews is gone, I've missed with Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of
He's
like the
gonna have
same
his
thing.
weeks.
Yeah, he
where
will.
He's in the
He
game
will.
plan,
Yeah.
but like he's also gonna have weeks where he does nothing and he's just
And that's why
hanging out.
and that's why I only feel comfortable with Lamar and Derrick Henry, right? And maybe that's more for redraft, but I just in general, like, I don't feel too comfy with Zay Flowers in one of my top 3 wide receiver spots, which I have plenty of situations there. But at the end of the day, if I'm looking at my rosters, I'm probably in the middle of the pack, and I have Zay Flowers as like my wide receiver 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'd like to just be stronger than Zay. Fine with it, but I can upgrade. Okay, so I think we've pretty much hammered the Ravens here. Next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals.
They
went 9-8 last year. Their 2025 projected win total is 9.5. What are you guys taking over under?
This one's tough.
That's tough because they got to play at Buffalo. They got the NFC North, just like all the teams in here do. Their NFC crossover though, their extra game is Arizona, which doesn't scare me. They do get to play some of the weaker teams in the AFC divisions, like they play. But I mean, that's Miami and it's Denver. It's not like they got like nothing.
Right.
I'm gonna take
Breeze. I'm gonna take the over though because I trust Joe Burrow and I think the defense, if it like has any sign of life, right? Like I think they make it 10 wins, right? Like if they can just
be the 20th best defense,
like stop a runny nose, maybe then they can win 10 games.
Yeah, so I'm taking the over as well. I think obviously we've talked about it before, but we know T. Higgins is going to miss a few games, and then Jamar Chase is going to be Jamar Chase, and then I think they really hammered the defense in the draft. So I think their defense, ideally, like if you think about it, should be better. So I'm taking the over because I think they can hit 10 wins and be a wild card team.
Yeah. You know who I really like is Chase Brown. He survived the draft. He didn't get like really any competition in that running back room other than Taj Brooks, who he's a short yardage, just like pounder kind of guy. He's not going to any threat to the receiving room. There's going to be a ton of checkdowns to Chase Brown. I have him projected out pretty highly, like about 1,400 total yards and 10 touchdowns. I think he's going to be a really good – Ron, we don't need to talk about how you liked him last year. I know you did. Zach Moss will be back, and I'm sure he'll get some work. But, I mean, it's going to be more like spelling.
It's going to be like – it's going to be here like Chase.
For some reason –
hold your jock for a minute.
For some reason, I don't see Perrine on here at all. How come?
Don't talk about
because he blows.
Okay. Hey.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. He's not going to do anything, But for me, out of this group, I feel comfortable with Burrow, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like even in a week that you say maybe you have a start 4 wide receivers and you have a shorter bench. I would even start Yoshi Voss.
Okay, so Yoshi Voss is one. I have a ton of them because he was just free. I don't feel good starting him ever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So I don't know if you didn't hear me, but I just said if you have a start 4 wide receiver and like a deeper bench, and you have a bunch of guys on the same bye, and your leg is about to be fall off unless you have to start him, then I'll start him.
I think
so. I'm a level with you. I was pulling up Underdog's best ball ADP to talk about Chase Brown some more. So I didn't fully hear you. So that was my bad.
But yeah, no, I agree 100%. Chase Brown survived the draft, and a lot of people are going to be happy that in a startup I took him. Maybe I kind of waited on running backs and so I took like a Chase Brown and maybe like a another back end running back 2. So, but I feel pretty darn good.
How do you guys feel about Mike Gesicki? Because I don't think we touched on him. But I mean, he got re-signed and he's back.
I think him and Yoshivas are good to have stashed on your roster just because of knowing what T. Higgins is. Like, I think they're perfectly fine players to just sit on your roster. Yeah. If I'm coming to roster cut downs and there's choices that need to be made, I know that these guys at least have a shot at points at some point during the year. When I could use them, when T. Higgins is pulled a hammy for 4 weeks. It might be tough deciding between the two if you have the two, or you might only have one, so you don't have to make the decision, but it might be every other sort of thing, and it's not always fun. But it's a high-powered offense with high volume of targets that could go to either one of those guys if T. Higgins misses time. And we've seen it happen.
Where would you guys think T. Higgins is going in underdog drafts right now?
Third round.
So I think it's a lot. It's a lot freaking higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, probably third, fourth round.
23 overall. So
holy
second.
Wow,
feels way too high, doesn't it?
What wide receiver is that?
12.
That's crazy to me because we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and like he averages only 12 games a year. And that's been like pretty consistent over the last 4 years.
They're good 12 games though, aren't they?
Right.
They are.
They are. They're very good.
What would you trade for him? Like if you are trying to acquire T. Higgins, what would you send right now?
Can you do it for an early 2 right now with rookie hype?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, there's no way.
I'm just asking.
I think it's got to be.
I'm just asking. Still,
I think it's got to be more like because I got him for the 108 the other day.
Okay, 108.
I was gonna say 108 to 110 range, like that tier. Okay. I would think that's what you have to get done.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know.
I got him for James Cook last year, and I like that a lot. I have that roster I have is like super, super deep. And so I have really good running backs, but I just felt like I'll take the upside on.
That's probably the most accurate thing, I think. So Wes in the chat said out of his 12 games, 3 are really good, 6 are fine, and 3 are just terrible with T. Higgins.
Yeah, because 3 of those games are Jalen Waddle games where he goes in and out of the 10 about 6 times, coming back from the hamstring.
But I think Ron, I think you really hit it on the head there. Like Mike Gesicki and Yoshivas are in a really good offense. So when T. Higgins is out, those are the next guys up, right?
Then they get started. Yeah.
Those are the type of guys you want on your roster. Good offenses, and they're like literally the next man up. So if you have Gesicki as your tight end 1, and he was going to get a couple receptions, so maybe 20, 30 yards, but then some games he's going to get a touchdown. And you're feeling really good.
Yeah, and in your tight end spot, I mean, it doesn't take much to feel good about that week for sure.
Yeah,
and like honestly, you'll kind of see that theme about some of the more high-powered offenses in the NFL. I like to be on these back end guys just in case, especially when you have somebody like T. Higgins, and you kind of know and expect you'll see something throughout the year. And these guys have obviously flashed, so it makes it easier to buy in at least a little bit, especially at the cost of what you're going to acquire these guys for.
Yeah, Yoshivas looked pretty good and quite a few games last year when T. Higgins was out.
Mm-hmm.
So
put a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah. Yep, he can get the job done. All right, next up we got the Cleveland Browns. Last season they went 3-14. 2025 projected win total is 6.5. Smashing that under, unless Joe Flacco starts all. Okay, wait. If Joe Flacco starts all year, I'll take over 6.5.
Even if Flacco's starting, I don't think Joe Flacco's like some savior for them.
Myles Garrett still exists.
And then
realistically, out of the NFC North, are they winning any of those games? I don't think so, right? I mean, maybe one if they just fall ass backwards into a win somewhere.
Like
Just
right now,
can't pull his head out of his ass. Like
I was gonna say, like right now, the Bears are an idea, so they haven't actually like become like kind of like part of that upper echelon. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he's winning.
So
the NFC
yeah,
North.
I can't even.
Right?
I can't even
The
think.
path to 6 wins is tough.
Yeah, that's what I was just
Yeah.
saying. Yeah,
Or 7. Sorry.
And I don't think they're going to have Joe Flacco start the whole season. Like I know their defense is
No.
solid. They have a couple good guys. Like obviously, Myles Garrett is really really good. But I think they're going to start Flacco for a few games. Then they'll probably. I don't know if Dylan Gabriel even sees the field. But I do think they're going to play.
I think they
Sanders.
all do.
I think
every single quarterback starts a game this year.
So I satted out Flacco, Pickett, and Sanders for games. I didn't with Dylan Gabriel. I had Flacco down for 8 games, Sanders for 6, and Pickett for 3. And I know Dylan Gabriel got drafted ahead of him, but like I think they'll start Sanders. I don't think they're gonna. If they turn to a rookie, it's gonna be Shedeur. I don't think Gabriel's gonna start.
I agree too, but I just think with the quality of quarterback we're looking at, one of them's going to get hurt at some point because it's the NFL. Somebody's going to get hurt. And I honestly, I think you should stack Gabriel out too for some games just because I think this is completely an open competition. Flacco's not part of the competition because he's he's going into the retirement home, next year after this season. But I think these 3 guys, the Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, are all going to get an opportunity in an actual NFL game to prove that they are or are not, the guy because they're hoping for the 101 next year.
I hated statting this out, and none of them did well out of the quarterbacks. No one cracked the top 24 quarterbacks. It was just gross. Conversely, I was excited to stat out Quinshon Judkins. I gave him about 1,000 yards rushing, almost 1,100 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. The problem with Judkins is I don't think he's going to get a ton of receiving work. I think Jordan Ford, I think that's his deal. I think they're gonna hammer Jerry Jeudy with targets and Njoku. There's not a lot else there, and the quarterback play is not great. So I think they're gonna hammer their top 2 targets in Jeudy and Njoku, and then it's everyone else is just like, I don't know, good luck, I guess. I don't have a ton of help for Cedric Tillman. I know Harold Fannin got drafted and people are excited by him. Unless Njoku gets hurt, I don't think he's realistically doing much.
It's a future thing at this point.
Yeah. So I've actually drafted a good amount of Fannin just because he's kind of sitting there in the middle of the 3rd round.
And in the 3rd. Okay, might as well.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, there's a path, but I can also see him being like their slot guy, right? I'd have to wait and see to actually feel comfortable with that. But I see there's a path for that. But yeah, outside of Judkins, outside of Jeudy and
no
Njoku,
I'll just say that. Like,
I don't really want much of this offense for my fantasy team.
Like I have Jeudy as like he would have been good for wide receiver 31 last year on his projection. Quinshon Judkins was like running back 29, so like a high end RB3, low end RB2, and Njoku was tight end 7. He was the one that did the best, right? And everyone else was like, "Yeah, you don't even want to roster these clowns." So like, it's gross, and I'm
just gonna say Njoku is the only one I care about on this offense, and that is strictly based off of the tight end position.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I also like Judkins, but
I don't. I could care less about Judkins, to be honest.
I think Judkins will be good, and if he gets any kind of receiving work, I think he goes up firmly into a running back 2 role. I don't see it right now. I think he's capable of doing it. He never really did it in college.
I think he'll be a fine back. His ceiling is just a fine running back.
He'll be RB fine.
RB Brian Robinson.
That's great.
Yeah. That's nice. He's going to be my new lover, Quinshon Judkins.
My new lover.
I'll let Brian know.
Please do.
Are you guys into Jerry Jeudy at all?
I'm not
really.
I used him to move up in a draft from 104 to 102. I got a lot of flack for it in our Discord, but I don't really think much of Jerry Jeudy. And I personally feel like there's a I don't have an RB2 in my team. I felt the team is pretty solid. So I really wanted Hampton, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people could say like, oh, you could, sit back and at 104, you could take, Henderson, right? Right. But I think that's a little early for Henderson. So I just felt like, okay, I can use Jerry Jeudy to move up 2 spots and get Hampton. And I'm not like, I think it's really not a big issue. Like I'm not feeling too comfortable with Jerry Jeudy on my team.
I have Judy kind of in that mid 2 range right now. I think that's. I actually just was pulling up keep trade. He's wide receiver 39. He's my wide receiver 40. So I'm actually pretty in line with that. So maybe I'm kind of right on value. He's like one of those guys too, where it's like the name. He still carries some of that, like, he was a first round pick kind of a deal, but it's like he's never really put it together. He had probably his best season last year, and it wasn't like spectacular. It was fine.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think everybody should be looking to move on from Jerry Jeudy off of what's going on right now with Jerry Jeudy. Number one reason being quarterback play. Number two reason is kind of some of the stuff we touched on with George Pickens. Sean Payton let Jerry Jeudy walk out the door, and they had Cortland Sutton and basically us three out there running routes for Bo Nix last year, and he was perfectly fine with that, rather
Franklin's
than having
nothing.
Hey, come on, he was perfect. Sean Payton was perfectly fine without having Jerry Jeudy in that locker room, and we saw the wide receivers that were out there. Bo Nix could have really could have used some help, on that field. And maybe that's more of a locker room thing than it possibly is for a talent-wise thing. I always think that Jerry Judy's been a talented player.
He's
hasn't
soft
always
as hell,
had,
though.
Yeah, and I think that there's something else that's going on with him. There's a reason. Sean Payton was more than happy to see him go, and Denver and Sean Payton are kind of one of those coaches. When I see him wash his hands of somebody that he's been around, I kind of of the same idea, and I'm just like, you know what? Let me get out of here right now while it's hot.
Yeah, and we don't know what quarterback's going to be playing. I think it can switch almost every couple of weeks. So I just don't feel comfortable with anybody outside of Njoku, just like you said, Ron, because of the tight end landscape.
And how many Jameis Winston games were with Jerry Jeudy?
I think the whole second half of the season, right?
Well, at least some of it. I know that New Orleans.
I know
game
they benched
on, Thursday
Jameis
night, right? They
a couple times.
Lit him up, and in that Denver game, he went for 200 yards.
I know the Denver game was huge, yeah, but that had to be we're getting Jerry the ball. This is against Denver. We want.
I think there was some
see
of
what
that, right?
You know what I mean? Vengeance game, revenge.
It's also the first time that he's eclipsed 1,000 yards receiving.
Right.
So
I think that's an outlier in my opinion. Right? And we thought Cedric Tillman was something.
Yeah,
last year, and that's
not Jameis Winston coming out there hucking the ball.
Which they're not going to do with two rookie quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett and old man Flacco, who's this close to having dinner at 4:30 at a Applebee's.
Right. They're at the end of their season last year when all this is going on. They're getting blown out every single week.
The Browns led the NFL in pass attempts last year.
Yeah, you'd expect them to hopefully be more competitive, and Stefanski is somebody who has always wanted to run the ball. They ran the hell out of the ball with Nick Chubb when Nick Chubb was healthy.
And their new offensive coordinator is Tommy Rees, who he was offensive coordinator at Notre Dame for 2 years and then at Alabama for 1 year. He almost always ran the ball more than he passed it. So I think there's a pretty heavy emphasis on running the ball, especially with the quarterback room they have. They can't. I think the idea is they're going to run the ball. Now, when you get down in a game, it's not always easy to continue running the ball. Sure. But I think the goal going into each week is we're gonna try to establish the line of scrimmage and run. We'll see. Yeah,
and we probably are looking at another Cleveland Browns seasons where we get to halfway point and we're talking about the same kind of a season in the back half. We're can we trust any of these guys? Because they got blown out by 40 points in half of these games, and they threw, 50 passes because of it, every single week, and it didn't really matter. And
Garbage time points still count.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
but
do. They really do, but it's hard to predict those into the future, to be that bad and to be,
and then
throwing the ball that much and all that
I think,
stuff.
They all benefited from Jameis Winston too. We love Jameis Winston for fantasy, and I just don't see that happening this next year.
Well, hey, he's in New York.
Dude.
Exactly.
Unless Kenny Pickett decides to just go rogue and just start hucking the ball, man. I just don't think it's happening.
I was excited Jameis was in New York, and then Russ signed. And then they drafted Jackson Dart. And I'm just like, what the hell? Why even sign Jameis? But I'm pretty sure
but he's already dead.
I'm pretty sure that Daboll has to at least win some games or he's getting fired. That's the reason for at least 2 starting caliber quarterbacks for a season. We'll see with Dart and what he can do. Obviously, he's the future. We probably do see him at some point in the season, just given the track record of Jameis and Russ in the past few years. Real quickly, should we hit this? We'll hit the Steelers here. Last season they were 10-7, lost to the Ravens in a wild card. 8.5 is the projected win total right now. That is the quarterback led or the Mason Rudolph led Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd expect that bumps up if Aaron Rodgers signs with the Steelers. What do you guys think?
Maybe a tiny notch.
I'm gonna take the over at 8.5. I'm gonna say they get to 9 because Mike Tomlin's yet to have a losing season. I don't think it happens. Right. And honestly, okay, so this is funny. So I was looking at it. I was like, what's the difference realistically from Mason Rudolph to Aaron Rodgers when I was statting it out? It's not as much as you think. Rudolph actually throws more yards per game than Aaron Rodgers does. Rodgers has a better touchdown ratio than he does, and throws less interceptions. So there is that. But it's not drastic as you might think. So do we think is Aaron Rodgers, is he gonna play for the Steelers, or is he just thinking around and he's just gonna go off on some crazy dark drugged up fantasy somewhere else?
If I have to guess, I'm gonna say he will end up playing for them, but my gut is I really don't know.
How long do they wait too? Yeah. Right? At some point they got to make a decision and go with who they go with, right? They can't just wait on Rodgers forever.
Right.
And I know Will Howard's not this great quarterback, but I don't think Mason Rudolph's any good either. So I think it's possible that he'll start some games as well if Rodgers doesn't play. It doesn't go to the
I mean, we've seen Mike Tomlin trot out Duck Hodges because quarterback play, wasn't good enough. So there's a chance that anybody in that quarterback room steps onto the field if it's not going right.
Exactly.
Will Howard can always run the ball. He's a really good runner. He's a physical. He's like an AFC North type quarterback, like a big body guy that
a bruiser.
Can run.
So we do have an addition. Well, we have a couple additions to the Steelers. One via the draft and Caleb Johnson, with the exit of Najee Harris, pretty much probably steps into his role, takes, I won't say one for one, but probably what I gave him. Pretty darn close.
Yeah. So Caleb Johnson, I satted him out 255 rush attempts, which is a pretty healthy workload. 1,100 total rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, which feels like a lot, but Pittsburgh runs the ball a ton. Arthur Smith always runs the ball. There's just the weird thing, and the other running backs in the room, like Jalen Warren, Cordell Patterson, they're not exactly huge goal line runners. So Caleb Johnson's probably going to get that short yardage work. The thing that really holds him back, because those numbers sound great, right? And you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, sick! I got myself a running back 1," and you would. But he doesn't catch the ball, or at least he hasn't traditionally. And Jalen Warren's a very good pass catcher. So I only have Johnson down for 20 receptions and 140 yards. I have him at about 12 points per game, which would have been about running back 25 last year. So him and Quinshon Judkins, I think you're kind of in a similar bucket in terms of fantasy production. Jalen Warren, I actually think, is probably the one that if he starts getting some touchdowns, could outplay where he's being drafted right now. I have him set it out as running back 36, and then DK Metcalf. I think he's probably the one that benefits the most from George Pickens leaving, right? Because he's the only show in town, right? Like,
Yeah.
the wide receiver room's gross in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like,
I do think, though, with him, it's kind of like the flip of, I know CD Lamb is much better than DK Metcalf, right? But with him being like the wide receiver 1 by a ton, I think he's going to get a lot of like defenders on him. And so I think he actually kind of gets hurt a little bit from George Pickens leaving, just because I think now he's going to have to, compete with the top cornerback and things like that. But there's not much outside of him and the runners. Like Freiermuth really is hit or miss, kind of.
He's fine.
So I do like myself some DK Metcalf, and so I'm not really in any position to go out and buy more. So
where do you have Metcalf valued?
So he's probably. I was just starting to think about fixing my rankings. So he's probably anywhere from like wide receiver 28 to 36 for me. So like back end wide receiver 3.
I have him in the 27 to 32 tier. Back end of the first, early second is kind of where I have him valued.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better buying him now that he's the only show in town.
Totally.
That is, unless Rodgers comes in and then brings his band of hooligans with him, which is very realistic. You know what I mean? Like,
every single wide receiver,
he's ever played with. Yeah, gets the man.
But I think it was a good call out with Warren. Like Warren has already been there. We know what we're gonna get from him, and we already all three of us had questions on Caleb Johnson going into the draft. I think he landed in a really, really good spot.
Warren's cheap too.
And Warren's super cheap. Yeah. So, I think the numbers that you have for Caleb Johnson seem a little high, but with the amount of work he's going to get, I think that's plausible. But I do think maybe some of those touchdowns might be reduced a little bit.
I think the volume is perfectly fine. But the Steelers just playing that defensive, grind it out. I'm with Holler. I think the touchdowns probably wind up a little high. But even you said that looks like a lot. And I agree. They do, they want to run the ball, and he's pretty much the only show in town to be the goal line back. But so many Steelers games are just so low scoring where like one touchdown is scored in the game. And that's just kind of what I see.
And I think part of it, I was going to say, I think part of it is just like they may not even make it to the end zone, right? They could be a lot of 3-point trips.
If it's Mason Rudolph operating the offense,
so we say this, but like the last 3 to 4 years, they pretty much have always averaged about 15 rushing touchdowns a season, and that's kind of how I got to those numbers. And it's like Jaylen Warren doesn't really get red zone work. Cordell Patterson really isn't either. Someone's got to get those carries, and it's not going to be Mason Rudolph. It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be. I mean, maybe actually, hell, it might be Will Howard if he gets in there, because he's actually a good runner. So that's kind of how I got into that.
Sure. No.
That number is unless they take a huge step back, right? And then it's like, okay, now Caleb Johnson only has like 7 touchdowns, which feels more like realistic to me. But just like historically how Pittsburgh and the rushing offenses work, I think that I think we got to give them a little more credit than they're getting currently.
Yeah, sure.
That's fair. I don't know. It's been since the husk of Ben Roethlisberger in his final 2 seasons, like the offense in Pittsburgh has been pretty abysmal and gross and 1 touchdown a game for years now. So I don't know. Maybe it just feels gross to watch. You know more about numbers than I do, so.
No, I mean, to me, it makes sense, right? You just think about like Najee's out of there. Somebody's got to get those numbers.
No, like it totally makes sense, and I think the volume's totally fine. I just can see a world too where like it's a team that plays between the 20s and doesn't visit the red zone enough for him to fall into the end zone.
That's possible.
11 times. That's the only thing that I see. I don't have any problem with the volume. He's gonna get that. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jeff, you missed it in the beginning, but we were kind of on selling Pickens.
Yes, indeed.
And that's what we'll leave you.
Not a lot else there.
Sell,
Yeah.
sell Pickens.
Yeah.
Sell.
Sell, baby.
And buy
That's
Dak
all we got.
Prescott. That's my
Yes.
pick there. Go buy Dak
Price.
Prescott.
And Ferguson and Jalen Warren.
Yeah.
And everybody.
Pretty
Go buy
delicious.
everybody.
Buy everybody.
That's
Everyone's gonna be
everybody.
a top 12 fantasy asset. Let's go.
Let's go.
All righty.
Oh.
Peace out, everybody.